G'day legends, I hope you're all amazing. On today's installment of Great or Garbage, we've got the Boss CE-20 Chorus Ensemble on the bench today. Big shout out to my buddy Dale who sent over this one for me to try out. I mentioned on a video a couple of weeks ago that I've owned several of the Boss dual series pedals like the OD20 and the RT20. I still own the DD20. One of my favorite delays of all time, the EQ20, I've got the SL20, the CE20 has kind of slipped through my fingers numerous times. I've almost had the chance to buy one a few times, the classic go on Marketplace, see it cheap, message somebody, they've already sold it to their mate. I did play one of these years and years ago, I think when they were brand new in a music store, and I can't really remember anything about that, but that's what we're here for. So very quick overview. Basically, you've got a bunch of different chori in here. There is a CE1 mode, a dimensional D mode. Super excited to try that one. Then you've got standard, acoustic, bass, and rich. You've got an intensity and a depth control. So intensity doubles up basically as your rate control for several modes. I think on the CE1, intensity is the only control that really works. On the dimensional D, intensity actually selects between different like virtual buttons because the original Dimension D had just a bunch of buttons that you press for chori presets. I'm going to be saying chori so many times in this video, I might beat my own record for that. You've got an effects mix, you've got a bass and treble control on there that can act as a cut and a boost. There are probably shelving filters in there. We'll see. Then you've got brilliance, so just turn that one all the way up and it makes you better at guitar. And then you've got ambience, which is kind of like a room reverby sort of sound. So we have to hear this chord. I'm contractually obligated to play you the Rush chord, and then I'll kick in the CE1 mode and just go from there. That is very, very nice indeed. It doesn't have the grit that a real CE1 has in there. I'm guessing they didn't model the preamp section. Keep in mind, these came out like well over 15 years ago, probably closer to 20 years ago, where something like, you know, the crust that you get from a CE1 preamp was probably undesirable. Like, why not just have a clean chorus? And, you know, people kind of wised up that that's part of the mojo, I guess, on that. But I don't mind that at all. It sounds like it's doing the wet dry thing. I like that there's this simple intensity control. On the CE1 mode, let's see what the brilliance and ambience controls do, if they do anything. That's pretty cool. The manual actually describes brilliance as adding like a high-end glistening style effect in there, which I really like the description there. So for the CE1, I guess if you were going for like a classic CE1 thing, you probably keep both these controls at a minimum. Let's actually just hear that with some dirt now. Interesting on the CE1 mode, as I turn the effect level up and down, it's only affecting one side of the stereo spectrum. That sounds pretty cool though. I guess if you wanted to kind of tweak the response, you've got the bass and treble control. So let's try those. Maybe I should try this on the standard mode because we're getting that wet dry thing happening. We'll come back to the dimension in a second. Let's try the bass and treble on the standard mode, and I'll bring the mix at around 50%. To me, I kind of want the bass and treble in the middle. Having them crank too much either side, I don't know, maybe it'll work with different sounds. Just kind of sounds a little bit cartoony. They're voiced nicely in the middle, but the brilliance control, I definitely like having up. And the ambience, that's nice up as well. Let's try actually the standard mode without clean sound, and then we'll hear some of these with like a very 80s style clean. You know what? This is kind of awesome. I love having that ambience control in there on a clean sound because it's like having a bit of chorus and a bit of reverb in there. I'm actually going to tweak the depth and the intensity in here. Let's have a listen to what this does. And basically, when one's high, the other should be low. In general for chori, or you can ignore that advice. Pretty interesting. I mean, there's this kind of hissy high end for some of these modes, but standard sounds pretty dull in comparison to the others. I think it doesn't have that super hyped up high end. Totally usable chorus on standard. CE1 mode sounds pretty nice as well. You know, if you don't have the money for an original CE1, or you can probably get one of these cheaper than like a CE2 was a craft reissue though, worth checking out for that. what's interesting about this, I need to hear this. We'll come back to some dirt with those. Okay, let's just put a pin in that. We got to hear the dimensional D mode on here. The only mode, the only control that really works on here, aside from like brilliance and ambience, is this over here, and we can just cycle through the different, basically like button 1, button 2, button 3. If you're not familiar with the Roland Dimension or the Boss DC2, I got a video with the DC2 Wazacraft you can check out, and an original one as well. So basically it's just like a preset chorus with different buttons on there, but you have different combinations of buttons. So there's 4 zones here for button 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a bunch of combos like 2 and 3, 3 and 4. I don't know, they're not labeled on here, which I don't mind, because I'm just going to go through and choose the one I like the best. And I've switched over to this kind of Rockman patch for the ultimate in 80s clean. Let's get super chunky in drop C on the PRS. I like Dimension Mode 3 on this, just like the real Boss Dimension pedal, just like my Clark Technic BBD. It's just the one that I like, so I'm really happy that they've at least emulated that aspect of it. Brilliance and ambience back down to 0. I'll give you some absolute filth on this, and I'll play around with brilliance and ambience just to see if I can dial it in a little more. Let's go. Okay, very quickly, you can hear something going on there with the brilliance control once you get it above noon on this. So I'm actually just going to keep it below noon. I might bring in some ambience, but let's do the No More Tears test with this. So let's turn it off and then turn it on. I like it. I think I'm into this dimensional mode on here. Is it worth the price of entry alone? Probably. This pedal, you can still get for less than like a new DC2 Wazacraft. I've seen them for around half the price of that. So I, haven't done a comparison, so I can't say. But, the Wazacraft DC2 sounds bang on. Would highly recommend grabbing one if you want that sound. If you can't afford that, this is going to get you pretty darn close. Let's hear some of the other modes on here. So they say like the bass chorus is good on dirty guitar, but first let's hear the rich chorus. And I like ambience up on this. It's giving me that kind of like old school Boss almost like early reflections thing that some of their old rack processors have. And this does remind me of some of the old Roland rack processors, which kind of makes sense. This is from the era where Boss kind of went all in with COSM, but there's no mention of COSM on this. So I wonder which algorithms they have recycled. We'll hear rich bass and acoustic with this dirty tone. Something interesting is going on with this bass mode on here. I don't know if there's some like feedback happening on the chorus, but it has a like flangerish quality about it on there. You can hear the difference in there. There's clearly some stuff happening to the wet path, like some EQing and things like that. Because the standard mode, you know, sounds, I guess, just kind of standard. It's probably just a standard, you know, 2-voice chorus or something like that. Nothing super interesting, but the rich and bass and acoustic mode sound like there's either multiple voices or there's some like processing with the phase or something like that. I don't know, maybe someone who's like looked at these before or analyzed them can weigh in. I don't know if anybody's really taken the time to analyze the rich mode of the Boss CE-20 chorus ensemble, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty unique. I like that. That has impressed me. I definitely cannot say this is a garbage pedal at this stage. I don't know if it's great just yet. Like the MD500, I think if you want to get something that does all the Boss modulations, or the MD200, they are pretty awesome. Stuff like, what am I thinking, like multi-modulation pedals out there that I've tried. The UA Astra, which I haven't done a video with, but I will get around to. We'll talk about that one in its own video, but this is pretty cool. I really like it. Let's see what we can do and how crazy we can make this. Let's get into some like Leslie style stuff with the intensity up on here. I'll go back to a clean sound. I'm just gonna stay on the PRS for this one. Maybe we go middle pickup combo. But let's play around with rich bass and acoustic for that, because you've got this like interesting, you know, high-end thing happening in there. Maybe it's just where I have brilliance and ambience, but I'm gonna leave them where they are. So let's check this out. Interesting. The brilliance control is definitely doing slightly different things on the different modes on there. So it's an interesting pedal. I think I've left this with more questions than I thought I would on here, like what's going on with rich bass and acoustic in there, and what's going on in the standard mode for one. And I like the CE1 mode. I like the dimensional D mode. They're doing the thing on there, which is very, very important in there. The CE1, I didn't really do anything with a kind of moderately crunchy sound in here. I'll fix that. I was going to say it'd be cool to hear the CE1 with like a Les Paul and a crunchy amp. So I'm actually going to do that very, very quickly for you. Let's hear it. Sounds pretty cool. Yeah, so CE1 maybe for the cleaner and crunchy stuff. Dimensional D for ultimate 80s grease. That is my favorite mode in here. The standard mode, maybe they made a mistake by calling it standard. Maybe if they called it classic, people would be more tempted to use it. But I feel psychologically like I don't like standard as much as the other modes because it's called standard. But it sounds totally fine. It's just a chorus. But I think if you wanted a standard chorus, you just buy like a Boss, CE2 or something like that, or any of their other chorus pedals, because they all sound good in their own way. Rich bass and acoustic are interesting. Rich is probably my favorite out of those three. I like on the acoustic mode, they've obviously done something where I'm going to guess it's like a multi-voice chorus, kind of like the tri-chorus does, where you have various voices, but there's a phase relationship and offset between the different LFOs that are modulating those voices. So it sounds very smooth and, kind of shimmery, for use of a better term, in there. Rich just sounds like there's a lot of chorus voices going on, and bass, be interested to know like what the core chorus delay time in there is, or if they're using feedback in the circuit or something like that. I think it sounds very nice on heavy stuff as well. The brilliance control is pretty cool, more like something that you set and forget, but the ambience I think is a little killer app on this, kind of like on the OD20 where you have that heavy octave effect that you could blend in. Super unique. I've never really seen anything else do that, maybe except like the Boss OC5, but different thing. That ambience with chorus makes so much sense to me. The bass and treble controls, I didn't get a whole lot of use out of, but overall, pretty impressed by the CE-20. I feel like I probably should have bought one all those years ago and learnt more about chorus, but with the benefit of hindsight, I probably just would have left it on the dimension mode and done nothing else. And when the DC2 came out, just bought that and flipped it anyway. So look, massive thank you to Dale for sending this out to me. I feel like I've learnt a lot about this particular pedal and about chorus in general, and continue to do that. If you like what I'm doing on the channel and you want to support it, there's a bunch of links to do that in the video description. I want to know, do you like the CE-20? Did you have one of these back in the day? And should I do some more videos with it? Maybe I'll slap it on a board with the DD20 and the SL20 and make some noise. If you want to see and hear those videos, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you all have a fantastic day. I will leave you with some dimensional D on the third setting, something like that. Bunch of filth. Have a fantastic day. I'll see you next time.